Hi, I'm Allie Caliendo, the founder and director of Foster Kinship, a local nonprofit serving kinship families here in Clark County. I am so pleased to speak to you today. If you are listening to this orientation, you have most likely just received placement of your relative's children, perhaps your grandchildren, your niece or nephew, cousins, or siblings. Before we get started, I have a quick disclaimer. This is a third-party orientation. The information presented here does not replace any of the information you will receive from the Department of Family Services or the Nevada Division of Welfare and Supportive Services. Today we are going to talk in general about licensing, child-only TANF, and other supportive services available to kinship families. Our goal is to provide you with a broad overview of the road ahead and ensure you are informed of potential options so you can make the best decisions for your family at the right time. Your specific case may vary, and any case-specific questions should be directed to the appropriate agency. We are going to be using the Kinship Care roadmap as we go along. If you don't have a copy, you can download one at www.fosterkinship.org, or just follow along with these slides. The objective of this orientation session is to provide you with a detailed explanation of the Kinship Care roadmap and to discuss options available for financial support. While each family's journey is different, there are many resources to help you along the way. We will be providing some of these resources as we go along. Just look for the roadside resource on the slides or roadmap. By the end of this session, you should have a clearer understanding of the different financial supports available to licensed and unlicensed caregivers, as well as an understanding of the difference between licensed and unlicensed. The Kinship Care roadmap, pictured here, is designed to give you a clear and simple overview of the decisions that you have control over and provides basic information on financial options so you can make the best choice for your family. It also outlines the rights and responsibilities of working with the child welfare system, the court timelines, and permanency options. Relatives play an important role in the lives of children who enter foster care. Children do better when they are placed with people who know and care about them. This orientation is for people who are taking care of relatives' children in the child welfare system in Clark County, Nevada. It is important to understand all your rights and responsibilities as a caregiver of a foster child. Kinship care is when a relative or close family friend takes care of a child in foster care. Relatives are called kinship caregivers. Those who have a family-like tie to the child but are not related by blood are called fictive kin caregivers. Kinship and fictive kin caregivers may be eligible for financial and medical assistance, to participate in legal proceedings, or to become a licensed foster parent. The courts and the Child Welfare Agency will make almost every decision about the care of the child. The caregiver is a respected partner in this process. Open communication between the kinship family and agency is essential. Foster care is a temporary arrangement for children, but it is important to understand that the child welfare process takes a long time, months or even years. You may be asked to adopt the child. Family boundaries and roles change when a child is placed in kinship care and the Child Welfare Agency is involved. Seek support from your agency workers, community resources, and other caregivers. Wondering how to pay for the expenses that come with a new child or children is a common concern of most kinship families I work with. These families often feel guilty about even thinking twice about making a commitment to their relative's child. Please know it is understandable if you are concerned about the financial responsibilities. If you hadn't had a chance to think about it yet, please know that the sooner you do, the better. One of the interesting things about kinship care is even though you are all performing the same role, caring for a relative, There are actually several categories you may fall into that determine the best way to get connected to supports available to you. The remainder of this orientation is primarily designed to provide full disclosure of the main financial supports available to you. The first is becoming a licensed caregiver. The second is through something called child-only TANF, which is available to unlicensed caregivers. Let's talk more about these. What does it mean to be a licensed caregiver? Steps to licensing will be explained by the licensing worker assigned to your case. This individual is different from the caseworker assigned to your children. If you have general questions about becoming licensed, you can call the licensing department directly at 702-455-7409. Licensing requires meeting all the same criteria as foster parents, including background check requirements for you and anyone 18 or older residing in the home, a detailed home inspection, an application and interview process, and 15 hours of training. This will be 3 hours a week for 5 weeks in a row. You will only be licensed for the related children in your home. You will not be a traditional licensed foster parent, so you will not be a resource for unrelated children in foster care. Upon the adoption or discharge of the child from your home, your license will become invalid. The licensing process is managed by the Department of Family Services Licensing Unit, and it takes between 60 and 90 days after the receipt of your foster care application for your home to be licensed. So that does sound like a lot of work, but there are benefits for going through the licensing process. The most important one is that licensed caregivers are paid the same daily rate as foster parents. This means you will get paid on a monthly basis for the care of the children in your home. You will not be paid retroactively to the time of placement. You will be paid starting the month after your licensing is completed. So if it is something you are considering, the sooner you start, the sooner you can get paid. If you are working full-time, licensed caregivers are also eligible to continue the daycare subsidy through Urban League. This subsidy can assist with childcare costs. Not all relative and fictive kin caregivers can become licensed. It is important to know that the policies that govern the placement of the child are different than the state regulations that govern foster care licensing. The agency is unable to waive any of these state standards for licensing. Therefore, some caregivers may be unable to move to a home that can be licensed. Others may have some issues in their background that preclude licensing. It's not unusual if you are a family who has a child placed with you by the agency who is unable to be licensed. Please do not feel bad. If that is the case with you, know that there is another form of financial support available. This is offered through the Division of Welfare and Supportive Services. Families who are unlicensed may qualify for this financial program called Child-Only TANF. Child-Only TANF is a cash benefit offered through the Division of Welfare and Supportive Services. It is available to people who are caring for relatives. It is different from TANF Neon in that it is available to related non-parents and does not have time limitations or work requirements. Unlicensed relative caregivers will have access to child-only TANF. This is also called non-needy relative caregiver TANF, or NNRC. If your gross household income is at or below 275% of the federal poverty guidelines for your household size, and you can show a blood relationship to the child in your care, you may qualify. The household income is counted for everyone in the house with a blood relationship to the child. If it sounds confusing, it's because it is. Foster kinship can help you navigate applying for child-only TANF. More information at the end of the session. The resources for unlicensed caregivers are somewhat similar to those that are licensed, but there are a few big differences. Both licensed and unlicensed caregivers will receive medical assistance for the child or children through Medicaid. However, if you are an unlicensed caregiver, Child-only TANF is your financial support. It is important to know that not all unlicensed caregivers will qualify for child-only TANF. If you are a non-related or fictive kin placement, you will not be eligible to receive TANF because you do not have a blood relationship with the child. If you make too much money, you may also not qualify for child-only TANF. We just spent some time talking about two types of financial reimbursement. The first is that through becoming a licensed caregiver, and the second is through child-only TANF if you choose to remain unlicensed. In my experience, the licensing process does cause some confusion. Some relatives think that if they remain unlicensed, they are keeping the child out of foster care. Some families think that remaining unlicensed means less intervention from agency workers. These are untrue. The fact that you are even listening to this orientation means that your child is in foster care or the care and custody of Clark County. The fact that they are your relative and placed with you does not mean that a child is not in foster care. So regardless of if you are licensed or unlicensed, you will have the same rights and responsibilities caring for a child in the foster care system. This means you will have to comply with court and agency requirements, visitations, home safety checks, monthly caseworker visits, and participating in the process. I want to let you know that the financial support that you may receive through child-only TANF will be less than the foster care reimbursement you could receive as a licensed foster parent. As you can see, becoming licensed can help immensely with the financial burden. If you don't have a blood relationship to the child, you're a fictive kin, then becoming licensed is the only option for financial support in Nevada. If you do not want to pursue licensing because you have been told it may only be a few months that the child will be in your home, please know that that few months can turn into years. Most families will benefit from some extra financial support that will go towards the care of the additional children in their home. Regardless of if you are a licensed or unlicensed caregiver, all individuals who are caring for foster children have the same responsibilities. These include providing a safe home as defined by the agency. Caseworkers will conduct monthly home visits and safety checks for all licensed and unlicensed relatives and fictive kin. These home visits may be unannounced. Following court orders is required and will assure the rights and needs of key parties are met. These include visitation and contact with birth parents. For more, visit qpinevada.org or talk to your caseworker. You may also want to join a support group for foster parents and caregivers. There are 4 in Clark County, and a list is available on qpinevada.org. When the child enters the foster care system, every effort is made to support the parents so that the child can be reunified, which means to go home. Federal law limits the amount of time a child can be in the foster care system. Permanency hearings are held every 6 months after the child enters foster care. These are held at family court, and you should plan to attend. In most cases, the law requires that the termination of parental rights, or TPR, is initiated for any child who has been in foster care for 15 out of the most recent 22 months. When these children are unable to go home, a different permanency plan is established. Long-term foster care is not a permanent option for children. When there is no longer a possibility that the child will reunify or go home, you may be asked to adopt the child. In other cases, guardianship may be an option. If you are unable to be a permanent resource for the child, do let the caseworker know so another adoptive resource can be identified. So what's the difference between guardianship and adoption? A guardian is someone appointed by the court to care for the child until he or she is 18. If you become a guardian, the court grants you the right to make most decisions regarding the child. but the guardian is not the child's legal parent. The court can still make decisions including visitation orders, ending the guardianship, and returning the child to the parent. As an adoptive relative, you become the legal parent and can make all parental decisions, and you assume all parental responsibilities. You may be eligible for continuing your financial and medical assistance. We've talked about a lot of different things so far. The most important concepts are knowing the difference between a licensed and unlicensed caregiver and the financial supports available to each. It is important you are made aware of these financial options now so you can start to have a conversation with your agency workers about your options. 5 things to remember. A placement decision does not mean your family can become licensed. That means the agency can decide your home is safe for placement, but that you're not able to be licensed. Remember that child-only TANF benefits are lower than the foster care reimbursement you would receive if you became licensed. Fictive kin families are not eligible for child-only TANF. The daycare subsidy for working caregivers is only available on an ongoing basis for licensed working caregivers. And don't forget, temporary can mean months or years. Have a plan for support. The sooner you obtain this, the better. So now it's time for you to start your journey. The first thing to ask yourself is, can you be licensed? If you can, my suggestion is you get started right away. Remember, licensing takes time, between 60 and 90 days. If you know you are unable to be licensed, you may want to apply for child-only TANF right away. This can take up to 45 days. If you don't know if you can be licensed, you need to connect with the Kinship Licensing team. There are 2 ways to do this. If you haven't received a call from the Foster Parent Champion team, you will receive one in the next few days. They can connect you to your licensing unit, and that licensing unit will help you determine licensing eligibility. You can also talk to the Kinship Licensing unit right away. The numbers are listed on the screen. If you are interested in pursuing child-only TANF, Foster Kinship has free enrollment sessions to make this process easier for you. If you have additional questions or would like to participate in the child-only TANF enrollment sessions, call Foster Kinship Fridays between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. at 546-9988. Our client specialist is here to connect you to resources and get you signed up to available community supports. We can also direct you to the right people at Department of Family Services. Thank you so much for taking care of your relative's child. Personally, I think what you're doing is incredible. All the best to you and your families.